The night over the desert was quiet. The stars were bright and close. The wind moved like a slow river. Aris walked the ridge with a small lamp and a pack of tools. He checked the fence lines of the human colony. He listened to sand scrape on stone. He liked the silence, he liked the work. He liked being the person who fixed small things before they became big things. Then the sky tore open, a white wound across the dark. It burned without sound for one long breath, and then the sound arrived. A deep roar like the world itself falling. A fireball crossed over the ridge. It dropped fast toward the salt flats beyond the old solar field. It trailed sparks like a comet that had lost its way. Aris did not think. He ran, his lamp swung hard. The ground shook under his boots, the fence posts rattled like thin bones. Behind him the colony lights blinked awake. Alarms cried out. Dogs in the far pens barked and then went silent. The fireball struck the flats with a heavy flash. A shockwave rolled out and pushed sand like a wave at sea. The air tasted of metal and storm. He reached the rim of the salt basin and looked down. A ship lay half buried, black and bright at the same time. Sharp angles like broken glass, steam rose from the cracks. Blue light pulsed along the hull. Alien signs moved like fish along the skin of the craft. Aris spoke into his radio, his voice calm but tight. He said he had eyes on a crash. Not human. Possible hazards. He asked for medkit. Suits, backup? Static answered. Then a cough of words. The relay towers had been hurt by the shock. He could not hear more. He looked at the ship again. He saw a torn seam, he saw a ramp, he saw the ramp try to open and then jam. Something inside hit the ramp from within. A soft sound, not a tool, not a rock. A small, desperate sound. Aris slid down the basin wall. He kept low. He smelled hot metal. He felt the heat on his face. He remembered training that said, "Do not enter a live craft." He kept going because training did not hear the small sound. Because sometimes a rule is a wall and a person is a door. At the ramp, he pulled his jacket over his mouth. He wedged his crowbar into the split. The metal screamed. Blue sparks snapped at his hands. He pushed. He set his boots against the hull. He pushed again. The seam opened as if it did not want to but could not stop him. A thin mist flowed out, cold and sweet. Like the smell after rain, his lamp lit the inside. He saw a corridor with soft walls that moved like a slow breath. The small sound came again, a weak knock. Then a whisper that was not words but still said, "Please." "Hello?" Aris said, his voice steady. "I am human. I will help." His words fell into the mist and did not echo. He stepped in. The floor gave a little under his weight. The ship shivered under his boots like a tired animal. He followed the sound past a curve, past a broken door, into a small chamber that glowed pale violet. She was there, the alien girl. She lay on a curved bed made of living strands, her body slim and tall, her skin a luminous color between silver and soft purple. Her hair floated around her like a slow wave, each strand bright like metal in sunlight. Her eyes were closed, her chest rose shallow and quick. A clear mask clung to her face. It flashed a warning in symbols he could not read. A vine of cables pulsed around her ribs. Aris put down his tools. He lifted the mask. The warning flash turned to a steady light. Her breath eased a little. Her lips moved. He pulled his canteen. He touched water to her mouth. She drank with small, careful sips. Her eyelashes flickered. Her eyes opened. They were large and bright. Not one color but many, like oil on water. Like a night sky under glass, she saw him and tried to sit up. Pain cut her. She fell back with a soft gasp. Her hand reached for him. Her fingers were long and fine, warm and shaking. "Easy," he said. "I have you." He slid one arm under her shoulders. He moved slow. He kept his voice low and simple. She spoke then, a stream of soft sounds, a language that turned and glowed. He could not understand the words, but he heard fear. "Thanks, warning." Aris pointed to himself. "Aris," he said. Then to her. A question in his eyes. She touched her chest. She whispered something like Sierra. The name curved like music. The ship groaned. Light flickered. The bed tightened around her as if it wanted to keep her. Alarms hissed from the walls like angry snakes. Aris looked toward the corridor. In the mist, shapes moved. Small machines unfolded from panels. 3 silver drones, each with a single dark eye. They saw him. Their eyes brightened, their bodies hummed. A weapon spine lifted from each back like the fin of a shark. Aris stepped in front of Sierra. He raised his crowbar. He was one human with a stick against 3 machines that were not made for kindness. He felt fear. He felt the old, simple truth. If he runs, she dies. If he stays, maybe both live. He chose, he stayed. The first drone shot a narrow line of light. It cut a groove in the wall beside his head. Heat kissed his ear. Aris threw the crowbar. It hit the drone's eye. The eye burst like a bulb. The drone fell and kicked like a bug. He grabbed the fallen drone. He ripped out the hot spine. He turned it like a spear. He was not trained for this, but hands learn fast when the heart must. The second drone lunged. He drove the spine through its face. It sparked and screamed in a voice like torn metal. It shattered on the floor. The third drone slid sideways along the wall. Fast and smart, it aimed for Sarah. It aimed for the soft pulse at her throat. Aris stepped between. The beam burned his shoulder. He smelled his own jacket turn to smoke. He did not fall. He swung the spine in a hard, flat arc. The drone split. Lights died. The corridor went quiet except for the ship's slow, heavy breath. Sarah stared at him, her eyes wide with surprise. Her mouth shaped his name without sound. He slid down to one knee. The pain in his shoulder bit deep. He grinned anyway, because sometimes a grin is a bridge. "Can you walk?" he asked. He made the walking motion with his fingers, simple sign, simple ask. She nodded, weak but sure. The living bed loosened its grip. Cables retracted like shy snakes. She pushed herself up, she swayed, he caught her, outside. A low thunder rolled over the basin. Human vehicles on the way. The colony had woken. Help would come, questions would come, guns would come. The ship lights changed to a deep warning red. A countdown flowed across the wall in alien numbers. The hull trembled like a drum. Sarah looked at the numbers and then at Aris. Fear sharpened her face. She touched her temple. She pushed a small bright idea into the air with her hand. A gesture that meant we must leave now. Aris nodded. He took her arm. He guided her toward the torn ramp. The mist thick around their legs like cold smoke. At the seam, the heat was worse. The air bent as if seen through water. He put his jacket over her shoulders. He set his body between her and the bright edges. Behind them, the drones sparked and twitched. One tried to rise. He kicked it down the corridor and did not watch it break. They stepped out into the desert night. The stars shone hard and beautiful. The colony lights blinked at the horizon like a row of tired eyes. Sarah swayed again. He held her up. She was light. She was warm. She was very alive. The ship behind them spoke, a final long tone. The hull lines burned blue. The angles pulled inward. The craft began to seal itself, to hide itself, to bury its own secrets. Aris looked at the ridge and at the girl and at the sky. He felt the shape of the next hour. He felt danger coming like rain. He felt the choice harden in his chest. He whispered to himself like a vow, no one takes her. Not enemies, not fear, not even fate. Humans protect, humans fight. Humans keep their word. He led her up the basin path. Every step fast and careful, every breath a new promise. And the night listened as a human and an alien girl began to run. The desert air grew colder as Aris helped Sarah climb the ridge. The stars glimmered sharp, and the crash basin behind them glowed faint blue from the dying ship. Each step shook her body. She leaned on him with weight that was both fragile and heavy. Fragile because she was weak, heavy because he felt the weight of choosing to save her. When they reached the ridge, she paused, her eyes wide. Staring at the colony lights in the distance, her lips moved, her voice soft, a language smooth like music but edged with fear. Aris pointed to the lights. "Home," he said, touching his chest, then pointing again. "Home," he repeated. She nodded slowly, but her eyes flickered as though she already knew it might not be safe. They crossed the dry scrub, shadows long, sand crunching under boots and bare alien feet. Aris wrapped her in his coat. It hung loose around her tall form. Her luminous skin still glowed faint through the fabric, a shimmer of silver and violet under starlight. The glow made her beautiful, but also made her dangerous. Too visible, too strange. Anyone who saw her would know she was not human. Sarah stumbled. He caught her again. She pressed a hand to his burned shoulder. Her long fingers warm, her eyes concerned. She spoke soft, a phrase he could not understand, but he understood the intent. She wanted to heal, to help, to give something back. Even as she could barely stand, by the time they reached the first fence line, the hum of engines echoed. Colony vehicles approached fast, their beams sweeping across the scrub like white knives. Aris cursed under his breath. He led Sarah to a half-buried shack by the water tanks, a place the workers used to rest. He pushed her gently inside, motioned for silence, pressed his finger to his lips, and she copied the gesture with slow grace. Her glowing eyes locked on his. The vehicles roared past, men shouting, alarms crackling from the speakers. "Unknown object sighted, lockdown begins. All citizens report." Aris held still until the engines faded. then lowered himself beside her, breathing hard, the weight of his choice pressing deeper. Inside the shack, the single lantern gave a dim light. For the first time, Aris studied her closely. Her hair was long and metallic, shimmering like threads of polished silver. Her skin was not one color but many, shifting softly as if painted by light itself. Sometimes violet, sometimes pale blue, sometimes white with faint gold. Her eyes were wide, alive with colors. They seemed to hold entire galaxies, and yet her face was young. Her mouth small, her nose delicate, her beauty sharp and soft together. Human and not human at once, she touched her chest again. "Sarah," she whispered, then pointed at him. He said, "Aris," and tapped his chest, then pointed back at her. "Sarah," repeating her name slowly. She smiled faintly, a fragile thing. Her teeth small and shining, her eyes softer now. She understood. Her hand moved in shapes, gestures, trying to show him something. Her fingers drew lines in the air. Her eyes focused and serious. She drew a shape like a star, then a circle. Then she held her hand flat and pressed it to the ground. Her body shivered when she made the last motion. Aris frowned, trying to understand. He guessed she was showing him why she came. What she fled? What chased her? She sighed and leaned back, weak, her body sinking into the shack wall. Aris knew he had no answers, no translator, no way to fix this. But he also knew she trusted him already, and that trust was now the only thread between them. Outside, the colony sirens howled. The sound of boots striking sand echoed in the distance. Men searched the basin. Soon they would find the wreck. Soon they would ask questions. Soon they would want proof. Sarah looked at Aris and whispered one word again and again. Not her name, not his, but a word heavy with urgency. It sounded like Tirash, soft and sharp. Her hand pressed to her temple each time she said it. He repeated it back, Tirash, clumsy in his mouth. She nodded hard, relief flashing in her eyes. Then she whispered his name, Aris, her lips shaping it carefully. Perfectly, her first human word. And in that moment he felt the shape of the storm about to fall on both of them. The storm of humans who feared what they did not know, and of aliens who hunted what they had lost. The colony speakers called again, louder, closer. Report to command. Unidentified life signs detected near the crash. Aris clenched his jaw. He looked at Sarah, weak but glowing, fragile but beautiful. Lost but alive, he thought of his duty. To report, to obey, to hand her over. And he thought of his promise to himself when he pulled her from the ship. No one takes her, he whispered again. This time to her. This time as a vow between them both. And outside, under the stars, the colony searchlights cut through the desert fog. Hunting, always hunting, closer with every breath. The desert did not sleep that night. Searchlights moved across the sand like restless eyes. Engines growled in the distance. Men shouted orders carried thin by the wind. Inside the small shack, Aris and Sarah sat close to the lantern, its weak flame painting their faces in soft orange. Sarah leaned against the wall, her breath shallow, her glowing skin dimmer now, her strength fading. Aris placed his burned shoulder against the cool wood and tried not to think of the pain. He only thought of her, of what she was, of what he had brought into his world. The silence between them broke when she lifted her hand, pressing her palm to the lantern flame as if testing it, then pulling back without fear. Her eyes bright with thought. She motioned for him to watch. She touched the bracelet-like band on her wrist. One of the cables still alive from her ship. It pulsed faintly, and then a small hologram rose above her hand, shaky at first, then sharp. The image showed a ship, not the broken one outside, but larger, wider. A fleet ship with wings of light. Then the image shifted, it showed fire, battles, spheres of energy crashing against hulls, alien figures running, smoke and screams without sound. Aris stared, breath caught. He understood none of the language. But he understood war. He understood fear. Sarah's voice whispered with the images, her words flowing like music, her eyes sharp, her hand trembling as she guided the story. The hologram showed her people. Tall, luminous, skin glowing like hers, eyes wide and bright. Then another kind appeared, darker, heavier, their faces hidden under bone masks, their weapons like claws that burned through ships. The images showed pursuit, destruction, whole colonies falling. Then the small ship like hers fleeing, chased across the stars. Sarah pressed her hand to her chest, her voice cracked on a word that sounded like last, and she looked at Aris with eyes full of sorrow. The hologram dimmed, then returned with one final vision. It showed Earth, his Earth, blue and green, clouds curling over oceans. The planet rotating slowly, a red mark flashed above it. Sharp, Pulsing like a warning, Sarah's hand shook. Her eyes desperate, she spoke fast, her voice breaking. Aris caught one word again. Tirash, the same word she had given him earlier. Heavy with meaning, he pointed at the earth in the hologram. Danger, he said, his voice low but certain. She nodded, tears bright in her eyes. She whispered again, Tirash, and pressed her forehead against her hand as if in prayer. The lantern flickered. The image broke apart. The band on her wrist went dark. Sarah slumped against the wall, exhausted, her glow fading, her body shaking from the effort. Aris caught her. He whispered her name, steady and firm, reminding her she was not alone outside. The colony searchers had reached the ridge, lights sweeping the basin, voices closer, sharper. One man shouted, "We found the trail tracks here fresh," heading toward the tanks. Aris cursed under his breath, his mind racing. If they found her, they would take her to command. They would question her, cage her, maybe worse. If he lied, if he fought, he would become an enemy to his own people. But as he looked at Sarah, weak, afraid, yet still trying to warn him of a danger bigger than himself, his choice hardened. He could not hand her over, not after what she had shown, not after what he had seen in her eyes. The shack door rattled as boots stomped outside. Voices shouted, "Open up! Check inside." Sarah's hand gripped his arm. Weak but firm, her lips formed his name again. Aris, the sound soft but clear. He pulled her close, hit her against the wall where the shadow fell deepest. The door burst open, light speared inside. 2 soldiers stepped through. Rifles raised, faces hard. Aris stood, his body blocking the corner, his voice steady. "Just me, checking the tanks. No one else here." The soldiers searched with eyes sharp. One of them frowned, sniffing the air. The faint, sweet scent of the alien ship still clung to Sarah's skin. The other soldier said, "Orders are clear. Everything suspicious goes to command." His hand reaching toward the shadows. Aris stepped forward, forcing their eyes back to him. His heart pounding, his fists tight. "You think I'd hide something in a shack," he said, sharp, angry, playing the role of the offended worker. The soldier hesitated, exchanged a glance with his partner, then muttered, "We'll sweep the ridge again," and they left. The door slamming shut, Aris waited, breath frozen, until the footsteps faded. Then he turned to Sarah, his voice low, his hands shaking. "They will come back. They will not stop. We have to move." Sarah nodded weakly, her glowing eyes full of fear but also trust. She whispered one last time, "Tirash," the word a warning, a plea, and a truth. And Aris knew now that the ship had not only brought her, but also the shadow of something much worse, something already on its way to Earth. The colony was awake now, its lights glowing bright against the desert night. Search drones cut across the sky like silver hawks, their beams slicing the dark. Aris moved quickly, guiding Sarah through old service tunnels near the water tanks, places he knew well because he had repaired them too many times to count. The tunnels smelled of rust and sand, the air damp from slow leaks. The pipes groaned when the pressure shifted. Sarah walked close behind him, her glowing skin dim under his coat, but the faint shimmer still leaked through. Like a star trying to hide in a cave, every sound made Aris tense. Every drip, every groan of the pipes, every gust from the vents at the far end of the tunnel. They reached an old maintenance hatch that opened into a forgotten workshop. Aris lit a single lamp, shadows stretching long across shelves of broken tools, cracked helmets, dusty wiring. Sarah sat on a bench, her body weak but her eyes sharper now. She whispered his name again. Aris. Soft, certain. As if practicing, he nodded, trying to smile. But inside he felt the storm pressing closer, the colony searching, the truth chasing, and something darker still on its way. Then the air shifted, the lamp flickered. A low hum filled the room. Sarah's eyes widened, she gripped his arm. She whispered fast in her own tongue. The word Tirash, sharp and urgent. Aris turned, his hand tightening around a wrench he had pulled from the shelf, his ears straining. The hum grew louder, closer, like a swarm of insects crawling over metal. From the shadows at the far wall, 3 small machines crawled into the light. Sleek silver drones, their eyes glowing red. They were not colony drones. Aris knew every design the humans used. These were different, sharper, alien, and hunting. The first drone leapt forward. A spine of light flashing from its body, Aris swung the wrench. The metal cracked against its shell. Sparks burst. The drone screeched in a sound like knives. Sarah cried out, lifting her hand. A glow spilling from her palm, sharp and white. The glow struck the second drone. It froze mid-air, shaking hard, its eye flickering until it shattered. the body falling in smoking pieces. Aris stared for one breath at her power, her strength. But then the third drone lunged, claws reaching for her throat. Aris dove, slamming his shoulder into it, pain exploding through his burned flesh. He pinned the drone to the floor, its claws tearing the concrete. He held the wrench high and smashed it down again and again. The drone twitched, sparked, and went still. Its light fading, Sarah fell to her knees, her glowing hand dimming, her breath ragged. Her power had cost her, had drained what little strength she had left. Aris caught her before she collapsed fully. His arms steady, his voice low. "I've got you. Stay with me." The silence after the fight was heavy, broken only by their breathing and the faint crackle of broken machines. Aris looked at the wrecked drones, each piece marked with strange symbols, each eye still faintly glowing as if sending a signal. "They know," he muttered. "Whoever chased you, they know you're here now." Sarah pressed her forehead to his chest, weak, whispering his name again, and then the word Tirash. Her voice shook, her body trembled. But her eyes told him the truth. The hunt had only begun. Outside, the colony sirens wailed again. But this time new sounds joined, not human engines, but something deeper, something sharper. A low roar that came not from earth but from the sky above. Aris froze, his eyes lifting, his heart hammering. He knew then the hunters she had warned him about were not far anymore. They were here, drawn by the crash, by her light, by the fight. And the desert night, once quiet and endless, was now only the stage for the first hunt. A hunt that would not end until blood was spilled. The roar in the sky did not fade, it grew, a deep pulse that shook the sand. The workshop walls trembled. Dust fell in thin streams. Aris looked at Sierra, her glow faint but her eyes sharp. She was afraid yet steady, her hand clutching his arm with strength she should not have had left. "They've come," he whispered, though he knew she already understood. Her lips moved, repeating that word again. Tirash. Heavy with fear and truth outside, human sirens wailed. Voices shouted the colony had seen it too. The second ship breaking through the clouds. A shadow blotting out the stars, its engines groaned like thunder. Its lights cut across the desert. Long beams searching, hungry. Sarah tried to stand, her legs shaking. She pressed her glowing hand to the wall. A faint symbol burned into the metal. Aris recognized nothing of it, but the wall seemed to sigh. A secret mark left behind. She turned to him. Her voice soft but urgent, words he did not know. But her eyes told him. She wanted him to run. To save himself, Aris shook his head hard. "Not without you." His voice firm. Low. A promise sharper than any blade. He had chosen once when he dragged her from the ship. He would not unchoose her now. The colony soldiers arrived first. Their trucks rolling into the flats, lights sweeping, rifles raised. They spread in lines, eyes sharp, voices loud. Their commander shouting, "We have orders, bring in the alien, alive if possible, dead if not." Aris froze at the words, anger flashing through him, his hand tightening around the wrench he still carried. Sierra's hand slipped into his, her long fingers trembling but sure, her eyes asking if he heard. If he understood what was about to happen, he did. And he made his choice again. Even as fear whispered in the back of his mind. The soldiers found the wreck first. Burned and sealed, no life inside, no power left. But the drones scattered around it were proof enough. Sparks still dripping from their broken eyes. The commander crouched, his face tight, he muttered, "Not ours, not human tech. She's dangerous," the soldiers nodded. Their rifles raised higher, their eyes cold. Aris knew then they would not see her as a girl. Not as someone lost and hunted, but only as a threat. In the workshop, Sierra slumped weak against the wall. Her glow dim, her body heavy in his arms. Her lips formed his name again. "Aris." And then she whispered a word that sounded like "stay." Her eyes filled with sorrow, not for herself but for him. She wanted him to survive even if she did not. He shook his head, whispered back, "No one stays alone, not you. Not ever." And for the first time, her lips curved into a faint smile. A fragile thing but real. Boots stomped closer, voices shouting, "Sweep every building. Leave nothing unchecked." Aris pulled Sierra behind a stack of crates, her hand gripping his shirt. Her breath shallow, the soldiers entered. Their rifles sweeping, one lantern cutting across the room. The beam landed on the broken drones, on the marks she had burned into the wall. The soldier's voice sharp. She was here. Aris held his breath, pressed close against her, the air thick, the silence heavy. The commander's voice carried from outside. "If she resists, kill her. Do not risk the colony. Sierra flinched at the words, though she did not understand the language, her eyes searching Aris's, asking the question without speaking. Would he give her to them? Would he trade her safety for his? Would he break the promise he had whispered? Aris shook his head again, his heart hard. His voice a whisper only she could hear. Never. And in that moment his choice was not just to save her, but to stand against his own, even if it cost him everything. The soldier's lantern swept closer, their footsteps heavy. Aris tightened his grip on the wrench. His eyes locked on the doorway, his heart pounding like a drum. Sarah pressed her hand weakly to his chest, her glow faint but her eyes brighter. She whispered one word, together, and Aris nodded. Because in that broken workshop, in the desert night hunted by men and by stars, there was no other choice. Together was the only way forward, even if it led into the jaws of the enemy. The sky split open again, this time not with fire but with power. The hunter's ship descended low, black and vast, its surface covered in burning scars from other battles, its shadow swallowing the desert. Colony soldiers stopped in their tracks, their faces pale in the glow of the beast above. Even hardened men knew this was no ordinary craft. The commander shouted orders, formed defense lines, aim for the engines, but his voice cracked, his eyes betraying the fear his body tried to hide. Above, the ship pulsed with light, circles spinning across its hull like 1,000 eyes opening at once. Inside the workshop, the ground shook, dust rained down from the beams. The walls trembled with every pulse from the alien ship. Sierra lifted her head weakly, her lips forming the same word again, Tiresh, but this time her eyes burned with certainty. She gripped Aris's hand tighter, her voice breaking. She whispered words he could not understand, but her meaning was clear. The hunters had come for her. Aris clenched his jaw, the truth hitting hard. She was not just a survivor, not just someone lost, she was prey, and Earth was only the trap they found her in. His heart hammered as he thought of the colony, of the soldiers already aiming their weapons at her, of the ship above aiming something far worse. Outside, a thunderclap split the night. Beams of searing light tore into the ground, throwing sand into the air. The soldiers screamed, rifles firing, but their bullets bounced off the hunter drones that poured from the ship's belly like a swarm of steel insects. The drones cut through the lines with beams of heat. Human trucks burst into flame, alarms wailed, voices begged for orders. The commander shouted, "Fall back, regroup," but his words drowned in the chaos. The colony, strong in walls and fences, suddenly looked fragile, small, already cracking under the weight of something far larger. Aris pulled Sierra close, his voice low, steady. "We have to move." She nodded, her glowing eyes fierce despite her weakness. She pressed her hand to the floor, and for a heartbeat the whole workshop lit with pale lines. Symbols curled across the ground, strange marks that moved like rivers. Aris watched as the marks circled around her, then faded. She gasped, blood at the corner of her mouth. The act had cost her dearly, but Aris saw her plan. She had marked this place, made it safe for a short time. "Hide," she whispered in her broken English. The word sharp and clear, but Aris shook his head. The workshop door burst open. A soldier stumbled in, his face bloody, his rifle sparking useless. "They're here," he gasped. "They're tearing through us. We can't hold." His eyes fell on Sarah, wide with shock. "It's her. It's for her." Aris stepped in front, his voice hard. "Get out, now." But the soldier raised his gun, torn between orders and fear before he could fire. A shadow cut across the doorway. A hunter drone slammed into him, dragging him into the sand, his scream cut short. Sierra's glow flared in horror. Aris pulled her back, his chest tight, his mind screaming that they had no more time. Above them, the hunter's ship released another wave. Not drones this time, but a sound. It was deep, endless, a vibration that made bones ache, windows shatter, engines die. The soldiers outside clutched their heads, blood dripping from their ears, their screams lost in the roar. Sierra fell to her knees, her body shaking, her hands pressed to her temples. Her glow flickering, Aris dropped beside her, pulling her close, shouting her name again and again, his voice lost in the storm. The hunter ship's light fell over the flats, a beam wide and sharp, scanning, searching. It slowed when it reached the workshop. The walls burned faintly as if the beam had touched them. Aris lifted his head, his heart sinking. The hunters had found their mark. They knew exactly where she was. Sarah's lips trembled as she whispered, "No more run, they want me," her eyes full of tears. Aris cupped her face, his voice a vow. "Then they'll have to go through me first." The walls shook again, the roof split with a crack. A piece of beam fell, sparks flying through the hole above. The hunter's ship loomed, massive, merciless, its lights circling like the eyes of a predator ready to strike. Sarah whispered one more word, her voice like a blade through the storm. Together. And Aris nodded, his grip on her hand unbreakable as the hunters closed in. As Earth itself trembled under their shadow, the hunter's ship lowered over the desert like a mountain of black steel, its shadow swallowing the colony lights, its roar making the air itself shake. The ground split, sand lifting in spirals. Every beam of light from the hull searched with purpose, circling the workshop, pressing closer and closer. Inside, Aris held Sarah's hand, his burned shoulder aching. His heart hammering against his ribs. He had no plan, no weapons, only a promise, and she would not be taken. Sarah's glow flickered weakly, her body too fragile now, her voice soft but steady. She whispered his name, Aris, and then a word in her language that he could not understand but felt in his bones. It meant goodbye or sacrifice or maybe both, and he shook his head violently. No, not like this. Not you. The roof tore open with a thunderous crack, beams snapping, sparks falling like fireflies. 3 hunter drones dropped into the room, their eyes red, their claws glowing with heat. The soldiers who had tried to regroup outside screamed as more drones cut them down, their rifles useless against alien steel. The commander shouted orders that no one could follow, his voice swallowed by chaos, the colony falling into fire. The hunters were not here for humans, they were here for her, and they would not leave without her. Aris raised the broken drone spine he had carried since the crash, his hands shaking but steady. The first hunter lunged, he swung hard. The spine cracked against its face, sparks blinding him. The drone staggered but did not fall. The second fired a beam searing across the floor, splitting the concrete like butter. Aris pulled Sarah behind him, the heat burning his legs. His body screaming in pain but still moving. Still standing, the third drone circled. Patient, waiting for a gap. Its red eye fixed only on her, Sarah's glow flared, brighter than it had been in hours. She lifted her hand, her voice trembling. A sphere of light burst from her palm. Striking the circling drone, the machine froze mid-step, shaking violently before shattering in a rain of fragments. But the light cost her, her knees buckled. Blood ran from her nose, her glow dimmed to almost nothing. Aris caught her, holding her tight, whispering, "Stay with me, please stay." His throat raw, his chest breaking. She touched his face weakly, whispered, "Safe. You." Her lips trembling with the effort of words she barely knew. The hunter's ship roared again. The workshop walls split. The sand outside lifted into the air as the beam began to pull. Aris felt the force dragging her from his arms. Pulling her toward the light, he dug his heels into the ground, wrapping both arms around her, shouting, "You can't have her." His voice a roar against the storm. The beam tore at them, his muscles screamed. His burned shoulder gave way, but he clung tighter. Sarah's tears glowed faint on her cheeks, her voice soft. "Aris." "Let go," he shook his head, his grip unbreakable. "No, together, remember. Always together." And something changed, her glow flared again. But this time it flowed into him, through him, her light wrapping his body like fire. The pull of the beam weakened. The hunter's ship groaned, its lights flickering, its drones staggering as if blinded. Sarah pressed her forehead to his chest, her voice breaking. "We fight. We stay," and Aris roared, lifting the drone spine high, slamming it into the floor. The light burst outward in a wave that shattered the walls. The hunter's ship reeled back, its engines screaming, its hull tearing with the sound of metal breaking. The beam collapsed, its light snapping out. Smoke rising from the cracks, the ship pulling away into the sky. The remaining drones sparked and fell still, their red eyes fading one by one. Silence dropped heavy, broken only by the crackle of burning vehicles, the cries of wounded soldiers, and the beating of Aris's heart. He looked down at Sarah, her glow dim but still alive, her chest rising, her hand still clutching his. The commander staggered into the wreckage, his face pale, his rifle hanging useless. He stared at the girl, then at Aris. "You should have given her up," he rasped. But his voice carried no weight now, no command, only fear. Aris stood tall, his body shaking but his grip on her strong, his voice steady. "She's not yours to give." The commander looked at the burning sky, at the retreating shadow, and said nothing more, because the truth was clear. The hunters had been turned away, not by armies, not by weapons, but by a single human who refused to let go. Aris carried Sarah out of the workshop. Into the broken desert night the colony smoldered, But the stars shone above again, sharp and endless. She pressed her head weakly against his shoulder, whispering his name once more, her lips curving into a faint, fragile smile, and he whispered back, "You're safe now, I promise," his voice rough, his vow stronger than steel. For in that night of fire and fear, one truth burned brighter than all others. When humanity chooses to protect, no force in the stars can take what they hold.